Amongst the specialist armoured vehicles designed for Soviet airborne operations is the BTR-D, a general-purpose tracked carrier vehicle based on the BMD chassis. This vehicle has several roles in the Red Dawn Team Yankee release. If you're fielding VDV, you're going to need more of them than you realise. Join me for a look inside the box. This is TSBX32, the BTR-D Platoon box. It's part of the VDV Soviet Airborne Forces in the Red Dawn release for Team Yankee. BTR-D is a versatile, general-purpose armoured carrier vehicle used to support Soviet airborne operations. This box set contains 3 resin and metal BTR-Ds that can be built in a number of configurations. If you're taking VDV, you're going to need a few of these. Soviet airborne and air assault formations are more heavily mechanized than their Western counterparts, and the BTR-D is just one of a range of air transportable vehicles fielded. BTR-D is essentially a turretless, stretched variant of the BMD infantry fighting vehicle. BMD was well armed, but cramped and could only carry limited passengers. BTR-D is longer than the BMD, adding an extra road wheel. Combined with the lack of a turret, its crew compartment could carry 10 men instead of just 4. Defensive armament retained the 2 bow-mounted machine guns and added 2 pintle mounts on the superstructure, usually mounting an automatic grenade launcher and a machine gun. In addition to an infantry carrier, the chassis can mount a 23mm twin AA mount for air defense. This version, the BTR-ZD, also added stowage for man-portable AA missiles. BTR-D was an anti-tank version, mounting an anti-tank guided missile launcher on the right-hand pintle mount. The troop compartment added racks for missile reloads. The versatile chassis has been adapted to serve other roles like artillery observation, command, signals, and as a drone launch platform. It's also the chassis for the Nonna-S SP mortar, but that's covered by a different box set. If we look at the back of the box, there's an exploded assembly diagram. The kit can be built in 3 configurations: transport, anti-tank, and anti-air. Parts for all the options are included and outlined in different colours here. There are enough parts to build 3 BTR-Ds. There's also a sprue of hard plastic commander figures. However, there's no unit cards or decals. Unit cards are available in a separate Red Dawn unit card pack. Let's look at the kit parts. Here they are all laid out. We'll start with the common parts used on all the variants. The hull is resin. I'm not a big fan of resin kits, but this one is nicely moulded and has well moulded detail. Resin detail can sometimes have a soft appearance, but this looks pretty sharp. No complaints there. The resin in my kit was a bit sticky. Best to clean off any residue with soap and water before painting. I also roughly sanded the hull joining surfaces where the tracks attach to improve adhesion. The track parts are cast in thermoplastic resin rather than the usual white metal material. That's a first for Battlefront, I believe. We'll have to see how that goes. I suspect we'll see more of this in the future. They couldn't use the plastic tracks from the BMD kit because the BTR-D has 6 road wheels each side rather than 5. The track parts are keyed and helpfully marked left and right. That should stop most people assembling them incorrectly. Detail on the track parts looks a bit soft and shallow. The lightening holes in the road wheels could do with being a bit deeper. There's also a pronounced mould line around the tracks that will need cleanup. I did find myself recarving the track detail on a few tracks where the mould line cleanup had removed it, but not really any worse than some metal parts I've worked with. The last common part is a metal crew hatch. I believe this is the central commander's position. The hatch can be assembled in the open or closed position. The optional parts for the transport variant are an AGS-17 grenade launcher and a pintle-mounted PKM machine gun. These are metal parts and the level of detail is okay, maybe a little bit soft. There are sockets moulded onto the whole superstructure to mount these parts. The BTR-RD anti-tank vehicle has just a single optional part, a launcher for the AT-5 spandrel anti-tank missile. BTR-D could mount either the spigot or spandrel missile. The launcher fits into the right-hand weapons mount. In service, the launcher could be dismounted from the vehicle and used as a ground mount by the infantry squad. The last option is the BTR-ZD 23mm AA variant. This mounted the ZU-23-2 twin-barrel AA gun ground mount on top of the superstructure. These parts include the base and gun barrels in metal and the gun mount in resin. There's also 2 metal AA crew figures. The gun mount base piece has contact points on the commander's hatch and the 2 rear corners of the whole superstructure. The crew figures are marked left and right to help you mount them correctly. Casting the gun barrels in metal means they need to be pretty thick for durability. Despite this, it's probably the best material choice for them. However, they do suffer from barrel wonk, a common phenomenon for metal gun barrels. Take some time to get these as straight as possible during assembly. The nice part of the ground mount is you can mount these on an infantry base as a separate unit if you're not building the ZD variant. There aren't any rules for that, but that's never stopped anyone doing this sort of thing before. So those are the parts for the BTR-D kit. There are a few unusual features like the thermoplastic resin tracks. These do need some cleanup but seem to work okay. Certainly no worse than some metal parts. We'll see in the longer term if that's something Battlefront will do more of. Having the parts for the 3 variants is nice, and it's a bit of a boon for the spares box. And the keying and marking of parts is aimed to help you assemble things correctly. Resin and thermoplastic will never give you the crisp detail of a plastic kit, but overall the assembled kit is nice enough for the table. So we've got them built. How will our BTR-Ds do on the table? I'm going to cover the infantry transport here. BTR-D is a tank attachment unit with the amphibious, infrared, parachute and passengers rule. Amphibious allows BTR-D to cross impassable water as difficult terrain, while infrared allows the player to roll 2 dice on the night visibility table and take the higher result. Parachute lets BTR-D deploy using the parachute deployment option if the game is using the air landing rules. Check out page 41 and 42 in the Red Dawn rulebook. The Passengers 2 rule allows the BTR-D to carry 2 infantry squads as passengers. Oddly, that's the same number of passengers as the BMD can carry, despite the BTR-D's significantly improved carrying capacity. Courage, morale and remount are all 3+. While skill, assault and counterattack ratings are all 4+. BTR-D is hit on a 3+. There doesn't appear to be an Afghancy option to field BTR-Ds, so as far as I know there's no improved stats version of BTR-D available. BTR-D's armour is the same as the BMD. Front is 2, side and rear 1 and top 1. Tactical move is 10 inches or 25 centimetres, with dash speeds up to 28 inches or 70 centimetres. Cross is a 3+, so you'll probably want to stay out of difficult going. There are 2 weapon stat lines, one each for the AGS-17 grenade launcher and the 7.62mm PKM machine gun. However, both these weapons include the MG keyword. Page 20 of the Team Yankee rulebook states that a team can choose to fire all its machine guns in the shooting step. So here the PKM is considered a secondary weapon to the AGS-17, which is why it only adds 1 to the cumulative machine gun rate of fire. So in practice, the BTR-D would have a cumulative machine gun rate of fire of 4 halted and 2 on the move. 1 shot out of either of these numbers would be the PKM. It has a different anti-tank rating to the grenade launcher, so you might want to track what shots are what. Different coloured dice or rolling these shots separately are both valid tactics to use here. I might have expected to see the AA keyword for the PKM, but maybe the pintle mount position has too limited a firing arc to be useful against aircraft and helicopters. Both BMD and BTR-D have forward-firing hull-mounted machine guns, but these just seem to be ignored in the Team Yankee stats. I guess that gives us some idea how effective Battlefront thinks these guns are in practice. So that's the stats for the BTR-D Transport. When can you take them? If we look at the Soviet formation on the online forces builder, there's no BTR-D based air assault battalion, just BMD formations. However, if we go into one of the BMD formations, a lot of the unit options are BTR-Ds. This includes the BM-37 mortar, the BTR-D anti-tank platoon, and the BTR-ZD AA platoon. These are all built from this kit. The Nonna S SP mortar uses the BTR-D chassis, but again there's a separate box set for that version. However, if we go into the BMD Air Assault Company, there are BTR-Ds in here as well. While the main infantry transport is the BMD, check out the options. The LMG, AGS-17 and SA-14 Gremlin teams you can add to the company use the BTR-D. So while your riflemen ride in BMDs, the specialist teams will ride BTR-Ds, utilising the extra space for ammo and equipment. So if you plan to trick out your air assault company, you'll need a few of these resin kits. So that's the BTR-D platoon box set for Team Yankee. While it doesn't have a formation of its own, you will need them to field your VDV force. They occupy a number of specialist roles. BTR-D is a resin kit rather than plastic. The thermoplastic tracks are an interesting new feature. We'll have to see how these are received. Hopefully the thermoplastic resin has the material properties for durability and detail required for a load-bearing part like this. Overall, the level of detail of the kit is fine, and it builds up okay. How many do you think you might need? Do you have plans to trick out your air assault platoons with machine guns and grenade launcher teams in BTR-Ds, or will you be building anti-tank and anti-air versions? Do you have any plans to use spare ZU-23-2 mounts as objectives or units in the game? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.